Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started then. And good evening, Placerville, and welcome to the continued meeting of Tuesday, November 10th. We are going to continue our meeting and come back into session. Ms. O'Connell, can we do roll call, please?
Let's see. It looks like Regina may have got dumped off again. She's having trouble with her internet. She is at home, so
Okay.
I'll handle that for you, Mayor. Mayor
No problem.
Saragosa,
Here?
Vice Mayor Thomas,
Here.
Councilmember Acuna,
Here.
Councilmember Borelli,
Here.
and Councilmember Taylor.
Here.
Okay, thank you, Cleve. And as any of our attendees or people watching, as you've noticed, we're back in Zoom format, mostly due to the fact that we've now, again, per the governor, sort of walked back, unfortunately, into the purple tier for our county. And so we've decided to go back, at least for now, into a Zoom session. We'll have to see how it is for our next upcoming meeting. I'd like to be able to do that one in person for a variety of reasons, notwithstanding our new council member as well as outgoing council members. So let's, we'll see how this works. But for now, this one will continue on Zoom, and then we'll see how it looks for in a couple of weeks and where we're at. So hopefully we'll be back into a lower tier, but we just don't know. And I think we're gonna have to. I like to put that on as well. We'll talk about that more later. So we'll go ahead and go on. So we were on discussion items, and we'll go into item 12 and item 12.1, and that is to adopt a resolution requesting membership in Pioneer Community Energy and approving the amended and restated joint exercise of powers agreement and amendment number 1 thereto. And Mr. Morris has this for us this evening.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you know, we've heard this before. You've had a presentation on our interest in joining Pioneer Community Energy. And tonight we're ready to take some more formal action regarding that. You adopted an ordinance in the past as well as an MOU to start the process. Tonight's action would be a resolution approving the original JPA agreement of Pioneer Energy, and then also an amendment to that original agreement, which would approve the expansion, allowing El Dorado County and the city of Placerville to join Pioneer Energy. We've had several meetings with them, and tonight we have with us Don Eckert and Sam King from Pioneer Energy, and they will do a brief presentation, and then we'll be prepared to answer any questions you might have. So with that, Don, I'll turn it over to you, and you should be able to share your screen to bring up your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Cleve, and good evening, City Council folks. And actually, we'll have a brief presentation by Sam, and then we can answer any questions for you. So go ahead, Sam.
Great. Good evening, Sam and Don. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Saragosa and council members. So I'm going to pull up my screen here. So last time we had talked, we through the MOU and ordinance, there was always a discussion about us coming back with the impact assessment study. And what I want to do today is go through that impact assessment and see and show everyone what the results look like. So again, the service territory that we're looking at is the basically the bluish area, so not including Lake Tahoe. That's the El Dorado County, including Placerville. So essentially, it's PG&E service territory, not including Liberty Utilities. And the way we looked at it before we even go to the base case is in terms of the key assumptions that we used in the study. We used, well, when I say we, I mean Pacific Energy Advisors. That's the independent third-party consultant that did the study. We meaning Pioneer, did not do the study. When I say we, I'm talking about Pacific Energy Advisors. So the key assumptions that they used here were they used PG&E data from 2018 and 2019, and they used the assumption of a 10% opt-out rate for Placerville and El Dorado customers. They looked at using current market prices and assuming that the rates stay the same, so that there's no change in rates. And that also we're looking at a January 2022 start date for both El Dorado County and Placerville customers. So the table on the left here, so the base case results on the table on the left here shows Pioneer's current financials, at least the high level parts, and you'll see that in fiscal year ending 23, 24, and 25, we're showing a net margin of about 2 million, 4 million, and 3 million respectively. And with the expansion, and here it just includes both El Dorado County and the city of Placerville. So in fiscal year ending 2023, looking at adding additional $8 million in net margin, and in fiscal year ending 24 and fiscal year ending 25, about the same levels as well. And what we did, what PEA did also, is to try to see underneath certain kind of stress scenarios, what would the impact be to Pioneer's portfolio. And the first one that they looked at was if in case there was say a higher opt-out rate. So as I said, currently they're using a 10% opt-out rate. So what if the opt-out rate were 25% for both El Dorado County and Placerville? And I'm just focusing on the expansion table here. You would still see a positive net margin of about $7 million across the board. So it does certainly help the results. The second stress test that was done was to see, well, what if power supply costs increased 20%? If you just look at the, even on the table on the right under the expansion table, you'll see that power supply costs of 130 million is a pretty substantial chunk of the costs that Pioneer incurs in serving its customers. So we said, well, what if the power supply costs increased by 20%? What would that look like? And what you'll see is that even with that 20% increased stress test, that with the expansion, the results still allow Pioneer to stay in the green by about $1 million for all 3 years. The third stress test is to say, well, what if, say, PCI, power charge and difference adjustment rates, costs went up, and say PG&E rates went down, and so Pioneer would have to finagle with the rates and to basically lower their rates one way or another to try to remain competitive with PG&E. And so this stress scenario assumes that there's a 7% drop in current rates, which means the revenues for Pioneer drops by 7%. And what would that look like? And even despite that, with the expansion, we're looking at about a little over 4.2 million, 4.3 million for all 3 years in terms of net margin. So again, a beneficial result. Under all 3 stress test cases, the net margins remain positive with the expansion. And we're looking at a 9-member governing board, which includes, it currently is a 7-member board, as you may recall. Placer County having 2, and each one of the other member agencies having 1. And what we're looking at doing is adding 1 member from Placerville and 1 member from El Dorado County. But with each vote, also it's a weighted vote currently. And what you'll see here is on the pie chart on the left here, it shows under the current scenario, it shows Placer County as the 49%. So essentially the majority vote here, with Rockland at say about 26%, and with the others making up the difference here. With the expansion, you'll see El Dorado County actually becomes the largest shareholder. I mean, just using a term, say largest share member here, and with Placer County falling at 29%, and the rest of the different member agencies making up the rest. The timeline, this has changed a bit. So this is haven't updated it since last time, but started on November 9th. We had the Auburn City Council meeting, and they did pass a resolution there. But they wanted to have a discussion on the voting shares, which we will have this coming Thursday. The Rockland City Council, which was happened to be the same evening as your meeting last Tuesday, they wanted to push the decision on the resolution till December 8th, and I've updated. I will have to update that later, but that one's been pushed. El Dorado Board of Supervisors has passed it, and again, the Placerville one was supposed to be last Tuesday, but we're here today. November 17th, so tomorrow, Donna and I will be at the Placer County Board of Supervisors. They'll be having this discussion on passing this JPA amendment, and the Loomis City Council one has been pushed till Thursday of this week still. Again, I apologize for the changes in timeline, but this is pretty fluid, and it's been changing as we speak, even this morning. But December 8th and 9th, we're looking at Lincoln and Colfax City Councils, respectively. And on the 17th, December 17th, Pioneer Board meeting, that's when the Pioneer Board actually votes on approving the amended JPA and also on filing the amended implementation plan to the California Public Utilities Commission so that they can approve the inclusion of the new members. And of course, by the end of the year, which is the target we've been shooting for, we're looking at filing the amended implementation plan with the CPUC by the end of the year. And again, just as a reminder, we're looking at this commission has up to 90 days to respond. So latest we should hear back is by the end of March on their decision on this. So again, our recommendation obviously is to join Pioneer. It's a win-win situation for both Pioneer and for the city of Placerville in terms of trying to make sure that your customers, your citizens have lower rates, and which could also lead to, if we have greater reserves, we can do more things to create local jobs by investing in local projects and maybe even local programs. We can try to help out with PSPS events. And I know you guys have suffered quite a bit this past summer. Some of Pioneer's customers have as well. And also maybe, again, with biomass, it also helps us with more local type of jobs. That's all I have. I'll turn it back to you, Mayor Zaragoza, for any questions people may have.
Great. Thank you for the presentation. Colleagues, any questions at this point? Yes, Vice Mayor.
For clarity, how many of the current members need to approve the entry of Placerville and El Dorado County into this JPA?
So currently for every one of Pioneer's member agencies needs to approve a resolution to amend the JPA, and then it goes to the Pioneer Board for approval of the amended JPA.
So it has to be unanimous?
No. So for the city council, it just has to pass like a normal city council vote for a resolution, and then in terms of the Pioneer Board, it has to be majority vote, which is 5 out of 7.
All right. And then all the councils need to approve as well, or some of them?
That's correct, Vice Mayor. All of the agencies in current Pioneer have to approve it. Either the city councils and the Placer Board of Supervisors. They all have to approve the expansion.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and to be specific about that, what they're approving is the amended JPA,
right.
And the amended JPA basically shows that it's including El Dorado County and the city of Placerville.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Mike,
Yes, Patty.
just to, excuse me, to follow up on that. So and if we go with this and any future then folks that want to join, then it would come to us for a yay or nay, as well as the board, right?
So the way the JPA is currently written, I think the answer is yes. And, you know, I would leave it out to Mr. Driscoll and Don Eckert if you have any thoughts on that, but that's my understanding, yes.
Yes, so any future expansions, you would be part of that presentation as well. Most decisions are going to be by what Sam talked about, that 2/3 vote of the Pioneer Board for amendment to the JPA. But those very rare instances, such as an expansion, is when we have to go to every member's council for passing.
Okay, thank you.
Correct. Mhm.
Just out of curiosity, is there any risk that you see of any of have all of them approved it so far? I mean, where are we at right now in that?
Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, so we've done so many presentations. So in terms of the presentations related to approving the resolution for the amended JPA, we've been to 2 of them, and that was both last week. One of them passed it with the promise that we would have a discussion on the voting shares in this Thursday's Pioneer Board meeting. And the other one was Rockland on Tuesday, and they basically moved that decision to their December 8th meeting. So no one has not approved it. One of them has approved it. And as I said, tomorrow, Don and I will be at the Placer County Board of Supervisors for their vote tomorrow.
And we've been keeping Cleve and Don Ashton over at the county apprised of the process. So probably at the end of this week, we'll update them as well, see how all these meetings went this week.
All right.
So I just, I'm kind of following through on Dennis. Is there, I mean, to me, wouldn't it behoove them to, the more the merrier? You know, the way your presentations have been presented to us, you know, why would there be an objection? Maybe I'll put it that way.
Yeah, there are, you know, the things related to voting shares.
I'm sorry.
And there are 2 main issues.
Okay.
There, and the first one being the voting share percentages, and the second one being a buy-in. Maybe Don, do you want to maybe talk a little bit about that? And I mean, I think it's they are both things that have been brought up, but maybe Don, you want to say a few words on that?
Sure. So in the voting share issue, we're going to talk about it at our Thursday's Pioneer Board meeting this coming Thursday. That's actually, expansion is not the driver for the voting share discussion. There was some, I think some folks on Pioneer's board that don't like the weighted vote, and they want one person, one vote. And I think the expansion sort of dusted off that issue, if you will, and brought it back to say, let's relook at the voting share. So the discussion on Thursday's board meeting will be whether we keep a weighted vote or just have one person, one vote. I think from City of Placerville's perspective, that you're probably indifferent on that issue. Regarding the buy-in issue, this is essentially where to recognize Pioneer's ratepayers for taking the risk to form the utility and making it successful and building up reserves, should there be some sort of a buy-in. Staff is not recommending that issue, and we're looking at other ways that that we can protect the capital that's already been invested into the utility, and not in a way that's not impacting El Dorado County or City of Placerville. But that's a discussion item on Thursday as well. We'll be looking for, an action item from the board in so much as to come up with a direction for staff of what it is that you want. So I don't really have any sort of parameters right now to even discuss with you. I think that's a board, that's going to be a board discussion on Thursday. And then from that discussion, I'll have more to talk about with you folks on that if it goes anywhere. But right now, it's something that's been brought up. No one's put any sort of numbers or parameters on that. So we'll see where it goes on Thursday, and I'll work with Cleve to apprise you all of that.
Yeah, and to add to that, so it's not as if every single member is feeling a certain way, right? That it's some members feel a certain way, some don't. So it's not as if it's a majority that shares certain views.
Mayor, if I could add
Yeah.
to that too. On those two issues, number one, on the voting shares, again, that really does not affect Placerville very much because we're a smaller member. So just having our one vote is sufficient and all that we would really expect. That's more of an issue maybe for the larger agencies like El Dorado County and Placer County. So that one really is a non-issue as far as we're concerned. And as Don and Sam mentioned, I see it as really, it's not related to the expansion. It's really something that's amongst the current board that they has been a little bit of an issue and they can work out on as we move forward. On the other issue, I just want to let you know that regarding there was some talk about potentially, and I guess that's still a little bit of a discussion about some sort of buy-in, et cetera. I wanted to assure the council that should something come up in terms of a buy-in or whatever that was unacceptable to us, we would still have the opportunity to back out of that if it came to that. So this does not lock you into saying, okay, they come up and say you have to pay a certain amount to get in. We're locked into that. This does not do that. We would still have that opportunity to back out of that if it came down to that particular situation. And I've gone over that with Sam and Don as well as John Driscoll and confirmed that that's the case. So I want to assure you that that's not something that you need to be concerned with because we can still opt out of this if something came about that was not acceptable to you as the council. So.
Yeah, that's correct, Mr. Driscoll, and I think that's a very good point to make. In other words, it's a resolution to prove it's a no regret move because it's not a 100% commitment at this stage. Based upon the subject to how things work out at the end in terms of the voting shares and/or the buy-in.
Thank you. A couple of questions. First being, so if a city did adopt a resolution, but maybe had a different, some caveats in there, like a buy-in or on the weighted votes, what have you, would that change the timeline in terms of going to the PUC? And is the end of the year, so, and then I guess as a follow-up to that, is the end of the year date a goal in terms of, we want to hit it by the end of the year? Because if we go, if we go past it, is this something where you have to wait a whole other year, or would it just be, it's January 15th and we have to wait until January 15th of the next year, or is it a whole year beyond that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So the CPUC does require that once you file an application, you have to give yourselves 12 months before the new area goes online. And that was more for planning purposes from the CPUC's view to give them time to adjust to the changing load and as well as the incumbent utility, in this case PG&E. So December 31st for us is a hard date to bring you folks on in 2022. And if any of our member agencies are getting caught up in maybe voting shares or the buy-in, those really do need to be discussed at the Pioneer Board level as far as any sort of action item from those. But every member agency knows that to move forward with this, they do need to amend this JPA by the end of this calendar year, actually before our December 17th board meeting. So that truly is the deadline for us.
Okay, thank you.
And remember, the JPA, the amendment of the JPA happens with the Pioneer Board.
Yes.
So
understood.
just clarification, Michael, so I really understand, if we miss the December 31st deadline, then the earliest we could join would be January 1, 2023. So it doesn't just extend it a year, it only happens on the calendar year. Is that correct, Don and Sam?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Because I think that's what I wanted to see if it would push it. So it really is time is of the essence for us
Correct.
to get this done.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And then if there's issues with the buy-in or such after December 31st, there's that, as Sam talked about, there's that 90-day, up to 90-day window, and they always take the 90 days. And that takes us really to the end of March. And up until then, essentially all we have is an application with the CPUC. Really, until we get that decision from the CPUC, we're not out there buying power for you folks and other sorts of marketing expenses. We're sort of on hold. And I think if there's any of these issues that move into January to get solved, again, this becomes then a no regret strategy. Let's get this done so let's get the paperwork to the CPUC. And if we can't come to an agreement in January, well, both sides can always step out. But until then, let's at least get the paperwork to the CPUC.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments at this point? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment.
Well, it looks like maybe I have lost Regina again, so
Oh, yes.
Council, I'll go ahead and we're now taking public comment for item 12.1, adopting a resolution requesting membership in Pioneer Community Energy. I do not see any hands going up, Mayor, so I'm assuming there's no public comment.
Okay, we'll go ahead. Thank you, Cleve. We'll go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to the council for further discussion or action.
Mayor, I'd like to move that we adopt the resolution requesting membership into Pioneer Community.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any other comments?
Just a great job by staff and the staff from Pioneer Power. Certainly appreciate all their hard work and understanding that this is a time critical issue and we do need to get this before the Public Utilities Commission. So I wish them well in the future presentations and we can garner the support necessary.
Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll be keeping an eye to see how that goes this week with the rest of your presentation. So absolutely. So with that then, if there's no further comments, we'll go ahead and have roll call, please.
Mayor Zaragoza.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Acuna.
Aye.
Councilmember Borelli.
Aye.
And Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Don, Sam, thank you. And as Mark mentioned, good luck with the rest of your presentations this week. And we'll be looking for the update and moving along here. So we're excited about this. Thank you.
So are we. We look forward to celebrating on December 17th. Have a great night.
Sounds
Thank
good.
you. All right.
Thank you for your patience.
All right. Thank you. Okay, we'll go ahead now and move on to item 12.2. And 12.2 is adopt a resolution approving a joint powers agreement and bylaws for California Intergovernmental Risk Authority, which permits the merger of Public Agency Risk Sharing Authority of California and the Redwood Empire Municipal Insurance Fund. And Mr. Morris has this for us this evening.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. Yes, tonight we have before you this item, which is, as you know, for the past, ever since I've been here and well before that, we have been members of the Public Agency Risk Sharing Authority of California, or PARSAC as we know them, for our liability insurance. PARSAC over about the last year has been looking at a merger, if I can call it that, with I got to remember the name of Redwood Empire Municipal Insurance Fund, or REMIF. And that those studies and work has been going on for, like I say, about a year now or a little over. I serve on the executive committee of PARSAC, so I've been somewhat involved with that process. However, our Assistant City Manager, Director of Finance, Dave Warren, has been on the transition committee, so he has been intimately involved with this process. The goal here is always to improve our pool, and by increasing these numbers, it spreads the risk further. REMIF and PARSAC are very similar in the types of coverage they offer, and it seems to make a lot of sense. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on the process, but at this point in time, all of our analysis has shown that it would be an advantage for us to do that. Costs will be interesting going forward. I don't think there will be huge savings in the early years, but over time, I think you will see those savings. And what it will also do is smooth out the spikes that might come in our insurance, so it can be spread over a larger number of agencies. We did get one estimate in their studies in terms of our administrative cost for the new pool. And it appears that cost would be reduced by about $500,000. So that clearly shows that there are some savings for overhead, administrative costs, whatever you want to call that. So tonight, what we're asking you to do is approve by resolution the joint powers agreement that would allow for a merger of REMIF and PARSAC. And if approved, this would take effect July 1 of 2021. And this process that we're doing tonight is being done by all of PARSAC cities and also by the REMIF cities. All of those have to approve it for, each city has to approve it for this to go through going forward. At this time, before I turn it back to the council, I'm going to ask Dave Warren if he would come on. Dave, if there's anything you would like to add to this, because you have been more intimately involved with this than I have. I welcome your comments also.
Thank you, Cleve, and you covered it very well. This is an opportunity to grow our current JPA by 15 agencies through REMIF. And we have spent, as Mr. Morris indicated, over the last 12 months or so, reviewing each piece. Currently, PARSAC offers property and general liability insurance, and so does REMIF. And we've looked at, there are slight differences in how do we marry the two, and it's an ongoing process. But overall, as Mr. Morris indicated, in the end, what it'll do is grow your JPA so that when shock claims come and we share those costs, it's not as a big an impact to Placerville. So in the long term, I see it as a good investment. They are, in looking at their financials and speaking with their board members, they're well run. REMIF wasn't as progressive as PARSAC as far as their risk control policies and whatnot, but they are embracing PARSAC's way and are welcoming the policies we have and kind of joining us in that progressivism of reducing our risk. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Just a couple of other things to add, and I think all of the council is aware of this, but we are with this group only for our liability insurance. Our workers' comp, they offer workers' comp insurance also, but our workers' comp insurance is with Northern California Cities Self-Insurance Fund. Did I say that right, Dave? Got to remember all these acronyms that we have for these. So we are separate for workers' compensation insurance, even though this group does have workers' compensation insurance also. The other thing I was going to mention, and it's going out of my mind now, I'm trying to remember what it was regarding, the proposal and the way it will work. The new group, Sarah, the general manager will be the current PARSAC general manager. The general manager of REMIF will become the assistant general manager. And it's kind of assumed, and I don't know that this would happen definitely that way, but the general manager of Parsac is probably only a few years away from retirement. I know a few years ago he was talking about retirement, so I think he is close. So the idea, I think, is that we would train the new REMIF manager would be able to fill his shoes once he retires. And I'll look at Dave. Dave, you haven't heard anything different than that. Hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn on that, but.
No, that's correct. And I think that really the assistant manager, the board will have an opportunity to vote on that,
Sure.
is my understanding. But that's kind of, that transition program is kind of built in. And when that time comes, the board would then decide, do they go ahead and appoint that assistant as the general manager, or do they want to do recruitment? So, but that is currently the tentative plan.
So with that, I'll turn that back over to you, Mayor, for any questions the council may have.
Okay, thank you both. Any questions at this point? I have one, and I know the answer, but I wanted to make sure the public understood as well. I know, and thank you, Cleve, for mentioning that our workers' comp is held separately. But would there be any upside to us combining these, with this, especially as it grows, Parsec? Would that be a potential cost saver for us? And then other question was, is this kind of the same, like last one, is every single municipality has to pass this in order for it to happen?
Yeah.
So 2 questions, I guess.
Sure. Let me answer that second one first. And yes, the answer is yes, all of them have to agree to it. And then I think it's maybe the same that the new board would have to approve it, or the Parsec board and REMIF boards, did they have to approve that too, Dave? Do you know?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that's what I thought. And then, the other thing I wanted to mention on that issue is that it's the same thing. If things don't work out, because there are still some things to work out between now and when this would take place, in terms of there's things like excess insurance. Who do we use? Because they use somebody different than we do. So there's some issues there that we would discuss and work on. And if it doesn't work out, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Excess insurance. So we insure up to, I want to say 5 million on the liability side. Does that sound right, Dave?
Per claim, it's currently 750,000.
Okay. And then
looking at up to $1 million.
And then we purchase insurance for above that amount.
Okay.
And I'm not saying Placerville specifically. I'm saying the Parsec group purchases insurance, and basically it's purchased. There's other pools out there similar to the Parsec pool, only they primarily offer umbrella insurance or excess insurance. So that's one of the pieces that still has to be worked out, and there's a few other minor ones that they'll work out. So if any of those don't work out between now and say the end of March, I would guess maybe that it will not happen, and we would fall away from it at least for another year and see if we can make it work. So, and then your other question, Mayor, was
workers' comp, about bringing them together. Yeah.
So I will tell you that I have looked at that several times. And I believe that the answer, well, first I will state that both Parsec and NCC SIF, the 2 groups we use for liability insurance and work comp insurance, we have been with both of those groups since pretty much their start, from the startup, one of the originals. I think Parsec maybe not completely, but NCC we were. Is that right, Dave? Okay. So, but the answer is we've looked at that, and there's both upsides and downsides. There may be some minimal cost savings, but really where I see the cost savings in changing would be in the fact that we have to assign a board member to a city employee as a board member to attend their meetings. And so because of that, we have double amount of meetings to attend. Dave is actually the board member for NCC SIF and our work comp insurance. and I am the board member for Parsac. So we kind of split those duties, so not every one of us has to take on both of those. Dave has been very active also. He's been the president of NCC. In fact, he is currently the, I guess I would call him the temporary or interim president, because their president left the city that they were working for. And so he's been asked to fill that role until they appoint a new president for NCC. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't see a big upside, at least at this point, to switching and pulling our work comp from one or pulling liability from the other, going with one of the others, as that cost for either mine or Dave's time is not significant. I think we meet, 4 times a year is what the boards meet. So it's not real significant and time consuming. The other side to that is there's some equity that we enjoy by being members of these groups from the past of being members, and there's potential to lose that going forward if we were to up and drop out at any given time. So not only is there not a big upside in terms of cost savings, there could be a downside in terms of revenue lost, if you will, or equity lost when we move from one to the other. So Dave, anything to add to that? Again, I want to, because you've been very involved with both these groups in the past.
No, great points, Cleve. The other piece is that if we were to walk away from these JPAs, as Cleve indicated, the equity we would basically walk away from, and also the administrative costs of maintaining the existing claims, the legacy claims that are still there, that are open. We potentially, if that equity was burned down, would continue to pay the administrative costs associated with those claims. So there's no such thing as just completely walking away. You would still have some liability with either JPA that you walked away from.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Cleve. Yes, Patty.
I just have a question. Do they have a limit to how many claims are filed, or do they frown? For instance, do they frown on, what they would call maybe excessive, or how is that governed?
They don't really, well, there's no limit. They have to accept any number of claims, but our premium that we pay is based on, if we have a lot of claims, a lot of big claims, our premiums go up. And it's based on what is called an experience modifier that they apply, and it's based on a number of things. Your claims is just one. It's based on, I believe, population and budget and the number of employees are kind of the factors that play into that. And so that they have a formula that they use that they then apply, and you pay a certain cost based on that experience modifier.
Frequency and severity are also included in that what we call an exponent.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for the explanations. I think it was just wanted the public to know, in case there was questions about, consolidations or, the ability to save some money, why we're still looking at keeping those separated. Yes, Councilmember Acuna.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Cleve and Dave, for the update on this. Dave, perhaps you have the better working knowledge in looking at the Redwood Empire Municipal Fund. Unfortunately, there are a group of cities or counties that have been significantly impacted the last 3 years by all of the large wildfires. Has that gone? Will that affect us in any way with the claims that they've maybe had to file?
Not those claims. So any past claims, we would not have any liability to. Basically, when we come together, any past claims are handled separately. It's just future premiums for future claims is what we would share costs in.
Now, sadly, it reads as a list of the who's who of all of the devastating wildfire counties in Northern California. I just wondered if that was impacting the relationship any. And either question for you or Mr. Driscoll, have we looked at all of the contractual language to ensure that we are properly being protected and be able to enjoy the benefit of this association.
Dave, you want to speak first? Excuse me, got a frog in my throat. I looked at the proposed bylaws. I think they're adequately protecting us. And I've looked at some of the other documents which are attached to the staff report. I don't see any real problems there. Dave, you want to comment?
The only major change, the agreement and bylaws are essentially the same as PARSAC's current agreements.
Yeah.
The only difference is we're growing our executive committee and we're growing our board. So our executive committee, which is the working committee, is going to grow to 13. And I believe REMEF is going to have at least five or up to five cities that would represent the executive committee. So they won't have the majority. PARSAC cities will still hold the majority in our executive committee, which is the working committee. And then also on your board, I believe PARSAC, is it 35? So we'll go from 35 to 50, adding the 15 members from REMEF. So again, we'll still hold the majority, but out of fairness, we identified how many, at least the first 2 years, they will have those 5 seats on the executive committee.
Yeah, I think it's important. The public probably don't realize the importance of both yourself and Mr. Driscoll being comfortable, because the general liability claims you are both active participants when those events do occur. So glad to hear that you've had a chance to review it all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Of course. Any other questions? Okay, let's go ahead and open up for public comment.
All right, now accepting public comment for item 12.2, a resolution approving a joint powers agreement and bylaws for the city to join, or for the merger of PARSAC and REMEF, Redwood Empire Municipal Insurance Fund. Please raise your hand if you would like to speak on this item. There's no public comment, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Cleve. We'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the council for further discussion or action.
Mr. Mayor, go ahead and make a motion.
Second.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the item and adopt a resolution approving the joint powers agreement bylaws for the California Intergovernmental Risk Authority as outlined in the staff report.
Go ahead, Kara.
Second.
Sorry, I was still muted. We have a first and a second. Any further comments? Yes, Vice Mayor.
I would just like to, with all the, I don't want to call them distractions, but with all the extra duties that have been placed on our city staff between COVID, some of the, what I would call distractions is the constant PRAs that you have to deal with, as well as other issues that are going on. This is really important stuff that you really need to be spending time with, and that to make sure that our city is protected, and that we are doing these things that protect the city, protect the citizens who pay the bills for this town, and all the things that we would like to be spending money on. And I know it takes a lot of staff time, and with limited staff, I appreciate the effort that goes into finding these areas where it meets the needs of our city more. And I don't know that I said that as well as it was in my head, but I just want to express my appreciation and know that your time is limited, and that these are truly the important things that we work on in the city. So thank you.
Well said, Vice Mayor. You're absolutely correct. So thank you for those comments.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do roll call vote.
Mayor Saragosa,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Thomas,
Aye.
Councilmember Acuna,
Aye.
Councilmember Borelli,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
I think the Vice Mayor stated that very well.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to item 12.3. And item 12.3 is adopt a resolution approving a commercial cannabis license permit fee for the city of Placerville. And Cleve has a trifecta this evening. He has his report for us as well.
Thank you, Mayor. So the next step that we have in approving our commercial cannabis licenses is to approve a license permit fee. We've been aware of this for some time. We've talked to our consultant, HDL, about it. In fact, last January, we were getting ready to start this process, and then things kind of went sideways on us a little bit. But we're now at a point that we're prepared to adopt this fee so that we can move forward with the final issuance of the licenses. There's one more step that I've talked about in my report that I'll mention here. So what we did is we went through a process with HDL, again, to analyze and look at what an appropriate license fee should be. This was all based on information that they used, information that we provided to them and discussed with them regarding what the risk factors were. And they have a set, due to their experience working with other cities, they have a list of risk factors that come into play that are based on time and energy spent on investigations, audits, et cetera, over the year of a license that are required by staff and outside consulting services to monitor and investigate problems with cannabis licensed facilities. So at this time, based on the study, and you have the report, you have the attachments, which show in the attachments, it has an analysis, and then it talks about the different positions in the city that would be required to spend a certain amount of time. And I want to emphasize that these are estimates because we have not gone through this before. So we do not know exactly what it would take. But HDL came back with a recommendation. Staff looked at that and made some modifications to that, and then a recommendation back to them, which they accepted. And at this time, the cannabis license permit fee has come out at $22,841 a year. And so that's what would be charged to each licensee at the beginning in order to issue their license. Now, I do want to say that we are going to take a look at this first year because we would like to issue these similar to how we issue our business licenses. And those are issued, and Dave, I'm going to ask you to jump back on there. I believe they're issued in September of each year. The renewals go out in July and then issue in September. Is that right, Dave?
That's correct.
Yeah. So we would like to follow that same process, which means they are probably only going to have actually of operation before a renewal would come up this coming year. They will probably only have a few months of operation. So looking at that, we may look at prorating this license for the first year. And then in the second year, they would pay the entire amount. I also want to mention that this is adopted by resolution. And therefore, if the council wants to look at it a year from now, maybe things have changed, we have a better idea where we're at, or maybe 2 years from now, we can bring this back and the fee could be adjusted either way, up or down, based on information that we have at that time. So with that, I will turn it back to you, council, for any questions, and then we'll try to answer those. So.
Okay, thank you, Cleve. Any questions for staff at this point? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment.
Looks like we have one, Kelly Chisano. You can unmute yourself, please.
Good evening, Kelly.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council, Cleve, and members of staff. I appreciate you guys all for staying so late last week and getting through what you could. I'll be as quick as I can tonight. So just in reviewing the permit fees and how the cost is figured, I was hoping that I would hear that we were that considering prorating the first year would make sense, because as I see it, we still are probably 6 months out, 3 to 6 months out. But I also would like to remind the council that we still have to set a tax rate, I believe. I want to make sure that our businesses are treated fair. A lot of people look to our business or in our industry as a bottomless source of revenue, and we are going to have a tax attachment as well, when in reality we are one of the most regulated and taxed industries in California and our nation right now. We pay an excise tax of 15% on all our products. We pay a state sales tax of 7.25% in the city. There will also be a local city tax. We pay the BCC, which is the Bureau of Cannabis Control, $60,000 annually for our licensing. So they do audits and they do our video monitoring, inspections. They work with us on our metric track and trace system on every single product. Our bank charges 2% of every dollar that we deposit into our bank, and also audits and inspects us. We will be talking later in the month about community benefit programs. They're also a pledge, a dollar amount pledge of gross dollars per year. So just we're at about 26% of our business is in tax and is taken before we get into our city tax. That's not including our city tax, to be determined. So that annual fee. So that annual fee, I think, is fair to say we prorate that the first year. I'd really like to look at how many hours are actually used in these departments throughout the year and keep track of that, so that when we come to next year to reassess the fee, we can see how many hours of enforcement were spent, inspections were spent, because I don't see with all the other governing agencies Placerville having to do too much. I don't want to discredit that Placerville wants to stay involved and still monitor and still do their own due diligence in making sure that their businesses are on the up and up. But that being said, there is a lot of oversight on us. I know on the tax portion of it, El Dorado County does have what I consider a little bit higher of a tax. So when we are considering fees and taxes, I just want to remind the council that being competitive with our neighboring surroundings, because there will be 7 shops in the next year or so in El Dorado County, and I don't want to see Placerville set its rates and things too high to be out uncompetitive. I appreciate all the hard work that has gone into everything that has been put forward here. Let's see. It was just, my thoughts were that we definitely come back and reevaluate after we have looked at what hours are spent, and then because the city might find that it is more and the fees don't cover what, so I just want to make sure that we're treated fairly, because no other business in the city, none of the coffee shops or even the alcohol license is like $6,000, and that's you're selling, you're doing your thing. But thank you all for your time. I appreciate all the hard work and energy and letting me speak this evening.
Thank you, Kelly. Kelly, real quick, if before you mute yourself again, do you know what the rate is for the county, the tax rate?
Yeah, the tax rate for the county is 4%.
Okay, thank you.
So, yep.
Mayor, I wanted to state before, maybe Kelly hasn't gone yet, but I want to remind him, we did also took this to our voters, and our tax rate was adopted. Ours is 4% also. So just
okay, that's what I thought.
Okay, yeah. I just want to make sure you're aware of that. I'm not trying to hide anything from you, so I want to make sure that right up front with that you were aware of that. So.
Yeah, no, I had thought that. I wasn't sure that it was that had gone through. So thank you for clearing that up.
Yep.
Thank you. Cleve, is that how the county also set theirs? Was it during the election?
I'm trying to remember with county how they did theirs. That's what's required. It's a tax, and so it requires a vote of the people to approve it.
The Board of Supervisors voted it in,
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
which would be the same like you, the city council.
well, we took it to the people. It was to the vote of the public back in 2018, I believe,
Yeah.
when that vote went through. So
Yeah, they may have just affirmed it, as they went forward.
could be. Anyway. So,
Okay.
All right. Thank
Patty,
you.
I
Patty, you
have a
want to ask?
question for Kelly. He keeps talking about, and I know that we keep being told about the scrutiny and how they are so governed and everything. And it was just, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago that I saw in the B headlines and heard on TV about Sacramento, and that they apparently licenses were being sold, and the governing bodies didn't know anything about it. How does that happen if this industry is so highly, patrolled?
I don't know how a license would be sold without the Bureau of Cannabis Control being notified. Unfortunately, what I have heard of that has happened, which might fall into that category, would be someone like me would say, I didn't sell my license, but because they create shares, because essentially it's an LLC that you can create shares of. I could sell 98% of my shares and I keep 2 of them, and I don't need to tell the Bureau of Cannabis Control that I don't have that license. The city of Placerville is requiring that anybody that has any share holdings of any proportion be notified to the city. The state's at 20% shareholder, so it's supposed to be reported, and what they're essentially doing is not reporting it. And then now it's getting back around as soon as taxes are being filed and the yearly reports are being crunched and filed in. But yeah, that is working with the bigger corporations and your many players in a ownership.
Okay, well, I was just surprised to hear that, because as I said before, we keep hearing about how highly patrolled, this is, and policed and everything. And then to hear something like that just kind of makes you wonder how that happens, if it's, so anyway, thank you. I know it's not us, but if it's a possibility and it's done down there, I just wanted to know how it happens. So thank you.
Okay.
I
Thank
think
you,
we have
Kelly.
One more comment from Annie.
Good evening,
go ahead and
Annie.
unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for letting me speak. I just wanted to also thank Kelly and support all of his comments, because we are that prorated aspect that you discussed, that would be really helpful, looking at this as the year goes on and seeing if it is an appropriate fee, because it is very expensive, one, to get started and to keep it going. So depending on how that will look, especially once all these other dispensaries open, it would be nice to keep evaluating. And we are all really stellar companies. So I think the staff load will also be on the lower end, because you won't have some of these troublemakers that you hear about in the papers. And that's all.
Great. Thank you, Annie.
Thank you.
I don't see any more public comment, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Cleve. We'll go ahead and close public comment and bring it back to the council for more discussion. Or yes, Vice Mayor Thomas.
Kelly brought up an issue about the cost and the fees and the associated expense to the city. And I think it's important to note that the city is required to have a nexus study, or at least a nexus to the fees that we charge people. And I'm a big believer that, the city's not here to make money. We serve the community. And the associated expenses in serving the community it should strictly be a pass-through that we're covering our costs, and we're not here to make money off of those fees. Now the taxes are an entirely different issue, and but when it comes to fees, when it comes to building permits, when it comes to all these things, there has to be a nexus to that. And I'm a big proponent of keeping that cost down for people just to live and exist in this community, and how they operate, whether it's whatever kind of business it is or whatever building they're doing. So, I'm a big believer that we do need to reevaluate those costs as we go along to make sure that we're not charging more than we should be in the years to come. So, thank you for those comments, Kelly.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Councilmember Taylor.
I have a question for Cleve. In terms of, I guess, in terms of timing, is the idea that these businesses will be working on their tenant fit outs and remodeling and getting up and running for the next couple of months since they were just issued, or they were just kind of given these, they won the application process. I don't know, I'm stumbling over that. But so in terms of this permit, most likely they're going to be getting it when they open up for business, or are they supposed to get it as soon as we pass this while they're kind of working on opening up?
My assumption is that we can get that to them as soon as possible once you approve this, because I think I think some of them are already in the process with the state, but we have to approve it with the state, telling the state, yeah, they're good to go. You can issue the license. So the state will ask us a question when they apply. They'll ask us, is this company authorized to operate in the city of Placerville? And we answer that, and then they can get their license. So my assumption is, or my thought is, that I want them to pay that fee to say that would be saying, yes, you've done everything necessary now to receive the license.
Okay. And then in terms of prorating for the first year, it looks like there's just a list of things that need to happen as part of this license.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming that these things need to happen even if it's in a consolidated time frame in terms of the audits and the inspections. And
yeah, we looked at that. What we've got programmed in there is a pre-inspection. So they will come in and do a pre-inspection before they can open their door. Once they've got all their improvements done, they're set up, their systems are all in place, there will be a pre-inspection. So that one will need to be done. As far as a standard thing, there's also designed for one more inspection during the year. Well, we won't do that probably in that short period of time. We'll just do the pre-inspection prior to the next year starting in September. They also have an audit designed. Well, with 3 or 4 months of service, it's probably not worth us to do an audit. We'll be in discussion with HDL on that and figuring out how we want to do that, but we probably will not do an audit that first year, but we'll wait clear until the end of the second year. So those type of costs that are set costs, I think the audit cost is $6,500. I think it's $1,250 if I remember right for the inspection. Maybe it's $6,000 and $1,250 for the inspection. So we would want to charge the $1,250 for the inspection. Very likely would look at maybe this first year not charging the audit costs. So those things we would do. The other items in there are staff time for things that may arise or may not arise. Some of those will happen. So we will probably prorate that based on the number of months we anticipate they will be in service.
Okay, so if we approve the permit fee for this amount, there's still room for staff to go ahead and prorate this for this first year based on the services and inspections and audits that they're actually going to get?
Yeah, there is. And I that's what my anticipating what we would do.
Okay.
If you want to include that in your motion to adopt the resolution and direct staff to prorate the fee for the first year based on those factors that I've outlined, that would be great.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Great. Good question. Yes, Councilmember Acuna.
Thanks, Councilmember Taylor. That was kind of where I was going with the proration. Cleve, when you say first year, you just mean the first year of the cannabis business license being in existence?
Yeah, I'm talking about a September to August year. So the first year I'm talking about, let's say that they get opened up in May, they would operate till the end of August. That would be the first year.
Okay, so, and it basically would apply to these first 3 applicants.
That's correct.
And then after this round is over, there's no prorations.
That's correct.
So maybe that should be in the motion also, that proration would apply just for the first year.
I would, well, the first year of any business, not, so if one of these went out and another one came in, you'd want to prorate that. Is that where you're going, Mark?
No, I was just, we have a lot of knowledge and working relationship with the current applicants. And I'm just thinking if a whole new person was to come in and we had to start from square one, I want to make sure that we have adequate charges available so that we can cover our costs. So I'm somebody who may take a lot of extra background check time, or that type of thing.
Well, and that's a different thing, Councilmember Coonan, too, because we do still have the application fees that are
No,
set
that's true.
for a
Okay.
new business. So that would be separate from this license permit fee.
I saw Dave Warren pop up all of a sudden, and I'll bet he's got just the thing that Kara and I are looking for, and Dennis too.
Councilmember Acuna, I just wanted to make a comment with your business license for all other businesses. If a business starts mid-year, we do prorate every business on their first year. So if they start 6 months into the business license year, they pay half for the business license tax. So
Okay.
that may be a guiding principle to look at this.
That's very consistent, and we should probably follow that consistency.
Yeah.
I would like to throw something out for consideration, because there are some hard costs associated with each new cannabis license that are not that I don't think we can prorate. And then there are prorated costs that go on through the that you could not do through the year. Like, for instance, if somebody came in July and you're renewing in September, there are hard costs that we're going to incur that could be $10,000 that should be paid and should be appropriate to be paid. Whereas if you come on in October, you're going to have almost a full year, and we're going to incur all those costs for a full year. So I think there's hard costs for each license, and this may or may not apply, but I think it would be important to have hard costs and then prorated costs.
I agree there.
And I don't know who's
correct. Yeah.
I don't know who's going to decide that, but I think that it can be determined at the time that the license is issued as to which are the hard costs that need to be and which are prorated.
Yeah, and if council is comfortable referring that to myself and Dave Warren, we can do that. I referred to that pre-inspection cost. That is a hard cost. That's a set number. That's not an hourly rate. That's a set number that they will do to review that. So you're right. There are the hard costs, and then there's others that are variable based on hours that could occur throughout the year. So those variable costs would be prorated. The hard costs would be that's the cost, whether or not when they come in during the year, they would have to pay that cost.
Yeah, and I think that's what everybody was trying to get to is there's some things that, regardless of whether you do it a week before or a year before, it's going to be the same cost for us to have to conduct those things. So we would want to make sure we're not prorating those costs.
Got it. Yep.
You want me to go ahead and try a motion? Okay, I would move that we approving the commercial cannabis license, and that we allow the staff to prorate the variable costs and keep the hard cost included in the base, have a base rate.
Second.
Variable costs, yes.
All right, we have a first and a second. We have any other comments?
Just to clarify on that, so say an audit that they may not need if they got their permit a couple of months before the end of the year. If they don't need it, we're not going to charge them for it.
We will not charge that, yes.
And is the way that Dennis phrased that motion, does that cover that? Is that clear?
I would take it that way from my perspective. That's totally my intention. If you want to try and clarify, you can, but that's the way I would interpret it. So.
Okay, sounds good.
Good question. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and ask for roll call vote.
Mayor Saragosa,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Thomas,
Aye.
Councilmember Kuna,
Aye.
Councilmember Borelli,
Aye.
and Councilmember Taylor.
Aye.
Okay, thank you everybody for the work on this. Kelly and Annie, thank you for calling in with your comments. I think very helpful for us as we had this discussion and ensure that we're only charging for what we should be charging for. So that was good. So, okay, we completed items 12.4 and 12.5 last week. So we're going to go ahead and move on to item 13, which are council reports from other agency meetings. And I'll start with Transit Authority.
We approved a safety plan and then received and filed an audit for the operating year and a couple of other administrative things.
How's the ridership? I know I took a commuter back home to Placerville, I don't know, maybe a month ago, 3 weeks ago, and I was the only person on the on the
Thank you.
bus back. So that my $5 went, to the but
it's down.
I don't know if
It's down. It's up from what it was, in the summer and March time. It's kind of starting to come up, but comparing, this month of this year versus this month of last year, it's just down so much. So
I think there was a little bit of a bump on the local routes.
yeah,
Yeah,
local
do you
routes
think-
are doing better. The commuter route though is really hurting.
Now with the governor's action today, sadly, there goes that success.
Yeah.
Aren't the majority of the riders state workers?
Yeah, that's been my when I've taken it, it seems like it's mostly state, county workers, city workers that, down here. So yeah, with everyone working from home, or
Right.
a good portion.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Transportation Commission.
I'd like to add one more thing on transportation. Something we didn't talk about at transportation is the Christmas lights that are on Upper Broadway, and that we have recently installed. And so I just wanted to point that out. Rebecca and Matt Veerkamp, they all worked on that really to get that completed. And so not that was on the agenda at transportation. Unfortunately, it wasn't. So thank you for the opportunity.
Is that Upper
Main, right?
Upper Main. I'm sorry, not Broadway, Upper Main. Thank you.
But I like the idea that you're going to go put lights up on Upper Broadway. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Wendy got really excited here all of a sudden.
I could come up. I'll flag traffic for that one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Anything else on Transportation Commission?
Yeah, we adopted the EIR for the long range transportation plan for the county. And there was quite a robust discussion from community members regarding that. It was a programmatic EIR, so it covers the plan, not individual projects per se. And then we also approved a contract with Stantec to develop a plan for zero emission bus conversions that will, be done in conjunction with Eldorado Transit. So switching that whole fleet over to zero emissions.
I just have to say I find that to be such a absolutely colossal waste of money when we have perfectly good natural gas buses that we're not going to have to basically turn over so that we can do electric buses, without having that sort of, I would call middle ground as we transition to a different, whether we transition off fossil fuels or not. It's just, it's a cost to local governments that's, shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, I mean, just the plan alone for the service agreement, off the top of my head, I don't have the agenda in front of me, but I think it was $195,000 just for the plan.
Right.
And then there's buying all of the brand new buses. So,
Yeah.
and hopefully we don't have to power them with fossil fuel generators when the power is out. That would defeat the whole purpose.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible the cost for the de minimis, really, reduction between a natural gas versus all electric. It's crazy, but that's a CARB mandate. But
It is, but what's upsetting to me is we just bought a lot of those buses.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're like
They're
brand new.
brand
Yeah,
new.
exactly.
And it's just really,
And we have buses to reduce the transmission of emissions, so we can put more people on one bus, so they cut down commuting. Now it's not good enough.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it just kills me. Well, more to come on that. There may be some pushback at the ARB level, but I mean, most local governments are going to be well down the road on a lot of this. But there could potentially be something at the legislature this year to deal with some of this. Because it's sort of an unknown thing to a lot of people. But how much this is going to cost local governments
Right.
to just have to redo fleets, not just buses but other vehicles as well. Yes, Councilmember Acuna.
Don't get me wrong, I'm all for reducing greenhouse gases, but when you take brand new buses and replace them with other buses, there's just a lot of waste that goes into that as well. So
No matter what state we sell them to, we're not going to get back our costs.
No, it's like once you drive it off the lot.
Yeah, I know.
Kara, are they looking at all electric buses?
I don't think that they know at this point. I think the service contract with Cantech is going to really kind of dive into if electric is even going to work best here, or if it's going to be more of like fuel cell because of the hills and the distances, and
Right.
I think there's a lot of variables, and that's why the contract for the plan is there's so involved and so expensive.
In limbo.
Yeah, it's probably your two choices: hydrogen and fuel cells and electric.
Yeah, and maybe a combination of the two, but I don't think that they know quite yet what the final arrangement's going to look like.
Okay, well, thank you, Kara, for that terrible news. All right, LAFCO.
Yeah, we had a very long meeting recently. When was it? Earlier this month. And we went through the El Dorado Irrigation District, MSR, and also the El Dorado Hills Community Service District annual reviews. Those are, two, you probably can't get anything any bigger than that in the county. And very interesting, a lot of work, of course, by staff. So we have one final meeting. I believe it is on December either 2nd or 3rd, and then that'll be the last meeting for the year.
Thank you, Mark. SACOG, so we meet, our board meeting is this coming Thursday. However, I did have 2 meetings today. I'm on 2 ad hoc committees. So the capital or the corridors, commercial corridors, which was probably our last meeting, at least for a couple of months. And this was really, they're building out a toolkit for all the municipalities to use about how to do revitalization on commercial corridors that have sort of went past their prime. Certainly Broadway and our Green Means Go submission we sort of related to this as well. And we sort of have a unique situation with, one part of Broadway there, unfortunately, that, wouldn't be helped by this, I don't think, but, that will be coming out. We are looking at ways to, basically make it easier for municipalities to go in and do some rehabs in some of these areas, and what that toolkit and really the expert advice coming out of SACOG. So that was that's still coming forward, and we'll probably still continue this committee in some fashion. And then the other one, which is very interesting, is sort of a race equity commission that I sit on SACOG as well. We just had an audit done of SACOG, and it called for very interesting conversation in terms of how you look at funding for transportation projects and other things that that SACOG does, and is this really is this a path that SACOG wants to go down, even though we did undertake this audit. So there'll be a lot more on that. I mean, my concern was, and what I expressed at the meeting was, one of the recommendations was to go from a competitive to more of a needs-based assessment when it came to, say, areas that were underserved. And, that's just a big fight we just had with some of the other municipalities that wanted to go to a formula basis for funding versus competitive. And then now you want to throw in sort of race and equity on top of that. It could really shake SACOG to its foundations depending on how you go with it. So it's an interesting process that will continue forward. I think it's at its infancy stages right now. And it is just a report. There's nothing that's actually being adopted at this point by the board, but wanted to just highlight that for the group. Any questions? Okay, Fire Safe Council.
No report.
All right. Any future agenda items?
Mr. Mayor, I have an item that I'd like to see if it fits here. I think Vice Mayor Thomas may have brought it up at the other part of this meeting briefly. And it goes to identifying on the council's part, this is kind of something that is Cleve's job, but recognizing that we have, unfortunately, again, had to reduce our already reduced staff. When I joined years ago, we were well over, probably almost close to 120 employees at this city. And now I'd be surprised if we break 90. And we just had a number of valued employees that have left to help balance the budget. And it comes down to the council perhaps adopting a policy to clearly identify the staff, specifically the department heads, what our expectations are for their responses to various public business that comes in, whether it be phone calls, emails, letters, and just so they know what our expectations are, so that we can't have this continuous interruption of work going on and adding to an already overloaded staff. And perhaps we've allowed a little too much openness. We have to recognize that with our reduced staff, people are going to have to be patient, and including myself. There's no more calling up and say, hey, what's the status of that permit? Has somebody so-and-so done this? Or when do you think that, we all need to recognize that these people are now shorthanded. There's no relief for the different departments. I mean, Cleve has done a great job. All of our department heads have done a great job. But, and then here today with the governor's action, we go back into this emergency operation mode almost. But would it be appropriate for the council to consider adopting a standard so that everybody knows, especially our public, of what you can expect a response in 24 hours, a day, 3 days, a full answer in 2 weeks, that type of a thing?
No, thank you, council member. And it makes sense. You're right. I mean, we're at a time where people are juggling multiple hats and multiple positions to do the work that we used to have more people to do. And that's just the reality of the situation. I'm interested to hear what Cleve would like, what Cleve's thoughts on that. I like the idea. I wanted to just see what Cleve thought in terms of how that would function, for his staff.
I would be interested in the conversation to see where that leads us. I don't know what staff prep would look like in terms of a presentation, but I would certainly be interested to hear their concerns for to help frame the conversation a little bit, their concerns for interruptions and some kind of a by department, not an analysis, but just I don't know if it's even anecdotal, but to hear back from the departments on what their challenges are.
Yeah, if I could, Mayor, what I would add to that is that perhaps we know that after the first year, we're going to have one new council member. We'll be sad to see one leave that's on our council right now, but we will have one new one. Perhaps a workshop. I intend to do a workshop we talked about reviewing our council member handbook after the first of the year. And that may be, I see it as kind of a workshop day meeting that we might have to go through that. And also that might be an opportune time to discuss this issue. I appreciate and understand fully what is being asked. I want to just note too that we want to be careful with that. If we set that expectation and we don't meet it on the back end, it also, it helps us on the front end, but can hurt us on the back end too if we don't meet that and all of a sudden, a constituent is coming forth and saying, you told me they would answer me within 2 days or whatever, and we don't get that. So I just want to look at how we phrase that, how we put that in place, policy, guideline. There's a number of, terms that maybe we could put to that. But I just want to make sure that we think through that clearly before we establish something that may have consequences we're not really looking for. So.
Either Vice Mayor or Mark.
Go ahead, Dennis. I have it.
No, so I guess Mark, you're not looking, because I know that December's meeting is going to be busy already. Are you looking to put this on the December agenda?
Yeah, I would encourage you guys to consider this sooner rather than later, because and also don't set this in concrete. This needs to be flexible. Last week would we have thought, what if, the governor's restrictions would have put us in purple tonight? So I have gone through this a couple of times with my former employer, and the reality is it isn't going to be 24 hours. It's going to be 2 to 3 days. And Cleve's absolutely right. What you do pick, you do have to live with. And so, Dennis, your point is absolutely spot on, is to get all the department heads together and say, what can we live with for the next 3 months, 6 months, and then be open to constant reassessing as hopefully the economy doesn't crash and things level out and we move out of this. But at the moment, I could also see it as a real morale booster for all of our staffers to know that we understand that these are very stressful times, and we've got a lot of challenges. So.
It kind of seems, I don't want to say counterproductive, but to spend a bunch of staff time to have a meeting about reducing their staff time.
I think it could be done pretty darn fast if they. I got a feeling they know what their challenges are.
Well, and so I would, I'm kind of feeding off of Cleve here a little bit, where he's asking us to consider putting that off until we do the council agenda, not the council agenda, the council handbook review and discussion at that point. Did I understand you correctly, Cleve?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, like I say, you have one more meeting this year. My assumption is that we could schedule it mid-January, perhaps on your off-council week, and have a discussion of the handbook. I know, Dennis, Vice Mayor Thomas, you and I have already discussed that and the need to review that handbook, especially with a new council member coming on. Perhaps there's some changes we want to make to that. And I think that perhaps that could be opportune time to do this also. Again, I don't think, I mean, we could look at it. I just don't know that we could get it in a format that we feel comfortable with and have things ready for that December 8th meeting. But if council desires that, well, I would do my best to do that.
Great. Well,
go ahead.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
I would defer to what Cleve said. As much as I appreciate Councilmember Acuna's years of experience and knowledge in this issue, and I would encourage you to, at that time, if it does go to January, to chime in, because I think your knowledge and your experience in going through these times of having a lot of staff, and now, I mean, we might be at the lowest staff level we've been in many, many years, to chime in there. But I defer to Cleve on this one, and I appreciate his input.
No, that's fine. You guys go with it. It's just, it seemed like something for you folks to consider in the future.
It absolutely is, because we are, I mean, we've
I-
already seen it with multiple PRAs that have come through, and it's not only it's also outside costs that we've incurred as well. A significant outside costs, at least in that example, with attorney fees.
Right.
And so it is something we need to take a holistic look at, to see how we can manage that, still provide the public with requests, because we need to and we should do that, but in a way that is not also harming the day-to-day operations of the city. And so that's what we have to balance as we go forward here. I'd love to be able to do it this last meeting with you, Mark.
January is fine, no problem. Just
okay. Well, and if anything changes, we can we can talk before then as well. Okay. Anything else under future agenda items? Okay. Seeing none. Any reports tonight, Cleve, either from you or from staff?
I don't believe we have anything. I had one thing written down from our last meeting, but I think we discussed that, and that was the meeting that I had with Caltrans and EDCTC regarding Apple Hill traffic, emergency traffic evacuation. I think I discussed that at our last meeting, and there's some other items. So I think that's all I have for tonight.
Okay. Yes, Patty.
Cleve, I'd just like you to talk about this purple stage that we're in.
Okay. Yeah, what I know, the governor did show that we were going back to the purple tier this afternoon on his presentation. That, according to the county, goes into effect at noon on Thursday of this week. They are now evaluating on a weekly basis whether someone can move back. I'm not sure if that applies. I didn't get the message on that, if that applies to us moving forward also, or does it still take 3 weeks before we can move forward? That's been their policy in the past. I know that you have to get 3 weeks in the higher tier before you can move up. So I kind of think that's still the case. I don't know if any of you heard anything differently on that.
No, that was the same thing. I had a interview with Fox 40, and they asked, and that was kind of what I said. I said, look, if the timing now is a lot shorter for when you get rolled back, my hope, it probably isn't, but my hope would be that they would be nimble enough to be able to move us forward as well if those numbers change, so that businesses would have that option to ramp back up if the numbers came down.
Right.
I think you're right, Cleve. I think it's more than likely it's that 3 week period. So we're not getting that same level of time going in the opposite way.
Yeah.
But we can see if that information comes out.
I can see if I can find different information on that. I know that obviously purple tier, as you know, moves our restaurants to outside dining only.
Right.
Which is very disappointing. I don't know how that's going to work going into our winter months. I did have a discussion with Vice Mayor Thomas on that today, and we are looking at some potential things and potentially a meeting with our restaurants to talk about what they can and can't do. So we will work on that over the next few days to try to put something in place, but it is a big concern of where we go from here. So with the restaurants.
So I was also wondering about, and it was in the Mountain Democrat today too, they talked about our holiday celebration.
Mm-hmm.
And is this going into this purple category going to change anything there? I know we were going to allow people to come downtown, if they, you know, and practice safe, but that's congregating. So I'm wondering.
Well, and again, we're not closing our downtown. We're not closing our street. We're not closing anything, and we're encouraging people to watch it virtually.
Right.
It will be virtual. So what that really comes down to, Councilmember Brelli, I think is, and that was not clear in the governor's presentation, it did come out briefly, is the matter of enforcement. Who is going to enforce this going forward? And I think it's going to be expected that local government will, and that puts us in an extremely difficult position, and it's going to be interesting to see how that works going forward. But we do not plan on having people down here telling people to wear masks, to go home if they don't have a mask, or to anything. But the events, you know, the music, there will be music, as I understand, at the bell tower. But the events that we've had in the past will not be going on downtown.
I just spoke with some people, and they're actually having trouble finding anybody that's willing to do any live music at all. So and I think that may be going by the wayside, but I'll be in a meeting maybe on Wednesday to that effect. There is one more thing I'd like to add to this whole issue with COVID, is that Dr. Williams is going to be doing a town hall this Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m.
Correct.
And I think that information is on the county website. I don't have it right in front of me, but I've been made aware of that.
If I can, I just received notice of that. However, I can't bring it up while I'm in this meeting. Let me see if I can find it here real quick.
Councilmember Acuna, you had a comment?
Yeah. Thank you, Patty, for bringing it up. And Dennis, thank you for the update on that. And sadly, the reality of people are going to get to the point where they're not going to want to be involved.
Right.
I got a question for Cleve and Nick. If we start to get into really heavy rains, which we have not had yet, with all of our restaurant installations, are we going to wind up flooding or having issues with our gutter being able to carry its normal load of water?
We'll take a look at that. I don't know, Nick, you're there. We mentioned that to people that were planning on doing those in the beginning, but some of them did not take that into account. Obviously, I think that their thought was that hopefully it would be over by then.
Yeah.
So we will take a look at that and see. We may have to have them make adjustments to their facilities.
I know the couple of the restaurants, I want to say maybe Public House, and those barrels, I've seen those almost get hit by trucks that are trying to stay either in their lane or not hit the barrels. And then I noticed Enchanted Forest was doing quite a weatherproofing job to their installation last Saturday morning early. And while I appreciate that, at the same time, we have to be able to allow for traffic flow and water to drain down the street. So, and I agree, we all thought it would be long gone, but sadly it is not. We're going to have it all winter. So.
But along those lines, you mentioned Enchanted Forest, and then there was another one I noticed today, and I can't remember which one it was. But I mean, they're putting in walls, and so the whole object of eating outside or moving outside is to be outside, and yet these places are being encased with plastic. I mean, what's the difference really? Yeah. Except that it's plastic walls instead of wood, or it kind of doesn't make sense to me.
Nick, have you had a chance to, Cleve's still looking, have you had a chance to look at any of these for?
Yes, Councilmember Acuna. A couple of them do have a little bit of distance on the back side, and we're actually planning on going later on this week, possibly early next week, to remove the bolt down grates and clean out underneath there. And when we do that, we can take a look and see which ones might impact the rain flow in the gutter.
Great.
I actually had a flood into my store one time where somebody had blocked up the gutter, and the rain came down hard enough that it backed up and flowed in through the doors, because my doors are about the same elevation as the sidewalk. And now if there's elevations that increase, that's not as big of an issue, but with the same elevation as the sidewalk as the interior of my store, we did get a flood.
Yeah, Creekside flooded a couple of years ago from a similar blockage by one of the bulb outs.
Right.
Yeah, that's the grate that we're talking about clean out. We do that at least 2 or 3 times a year. We go out there and remove it because it's bolted down and then clean it up.
Thank you, sir.
Exercise those bolts.
Yep. Well, and Patty, to your question, and I don't quote me on this, but I kind of looked at the guidelines quickly this afternoon, and it looked like it says you can do 1 wall for outside seating, but that's it. So, we'll have to take a look at it and see how we, if we can bring some uniformity to some of the things going on, at least on Main Street. Yes, Councilmember Acuna.
And I guess you might as well, I think it might have been brought up. We, again, not expecting any of this to still be in service. Everybody is going to be taking heaters out into these enclosures. And if somebody knocks a heater over into some of this more lightweight flammable material, what kind of a fire risk are we putting that restaurant's patrons at? Again, nobody thought we would be out there on the street but they're going to have heaters.
Yeah.
We had that discussion with the fire district this afternoon, Pierre and I, and we're going to work on issuing some statements to them on what they can and can't do. So
I'm sorry I'm glad you're doing it. I'm sorry we still have to be here, but I think it's our job to make sure we're all safe.
I think the market's going to drive a little bit of this as well. In terms of how comfortable people are going to be, as the weather gets colder and wetter, even with, enclosures and heated lamps, it still might not be the most comfortable dining experience at night, especially. And so, yeah, I think, we are in uncharted territory. I don't think any of us thought we'd still be here at this point, but
I just feel so sorry for our small businesses. I just, and I are one, it's just awful what's happening. And I hate to be a doom and gloom, but boy, it's not looking good.
no. Well, more to come on that. And I know Vice Mayor and Cleve have also had discussions about this already. There's been some anticipation on this. So more to come, at least as it pertains to some of the outdoor dining and sales. So definitely keep on top of it.
Have you heard any more about any hope of a stimulus to help these folks?
I think there's an expectation. I think there's an expectation in Sacramento that, if there's a President Biden, that there would be another, there'd be more pressure to get a stimulus done next year. But we're still looking at probably, even under the most generous of scenarios, probably be sometime in February, and then however long it would take to get those funds out the door, unless they did something in the lame duck session, which looks highly unlikely.
Yeah.
So we're still like several months. Yes, Councilmember Taylor.
I was listening to Governor Newsom's press conference today, and he mentioned that the state was $11 billion over what they anticipated in revenues, and that his priority for this upcoming year was going to be getting assistance to small businesses and, the people that need it the most. So hopefully, in the near future, we can get some assistance, just, regardless of what the federal government's doing within just state leadership, but we will see.
Yeah, that'd be great. I know he walked back his original comments on the stimulus dollars. We'll see where he goes on this one. Mm-hmm. 11 billion is a lot, but it actually goes quite quickly when you're looking at a state the size of California.
Mayor, I need to correct a couple of things. I understand the county has issued a correction where originally they said Thursday at noon. This actually goes into effect tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. And then the second thing on the town hall meeting, it is Thursday, the 19th. I got this from Carla Haas at 5:30. And I will get the link up on our website tomorrow morning and on our Facebook. So people that are looking for it can find the link to join that Zoom town hall meeting.
Great. Thank you, Cleve. Okay. Oh, yes, Vice Mayor.
Is that related to business or, I suppose so. It's all the restrictions that are in place and what's going on.
Yeah, it's more in general. It's going to have pretty a high level look. Because it's going to have, it says representatives from County Hospital, UC Davis, and others that will be, I guess, making somewhat of a presentation, and then they'll take questions.
All right.
So.
Okay. Well, to be continued there, and we'll continue to update the public as we get information, put it up on their website, or at least link it over to the county as that information becomes available. So with that, some of the upcoming items, we have the WPI 2.2 construction contract award, the Giovanni Sewer Improvement Project, the Cedar Ravine Sewer Replacement Project, EV charging stations, job and contract job specifications for the Gold Bug tours, and facility coordinator for Measure J. So those are some of the upcoming items for City Council, and of course, always to be continued as we've had this conversation with COVID and anything else that might pop up here, which, 2020 keeps on giving. So we shall see as we move forward. So with that, yes.
Just quickly, I want to mention, perhaps the best way to do this is have each one of you contact me individually, since we didn't really agendize it, but the format for our next meeting on December 8th. I know I've had some comments from some of you already. It's an important meeting, and that we have the swearing in of a new council member. And so anyway, just your thoughts on that. We don't need to discuss it now. Just want to mention it and maybe think about that. We can kind of evaluate what we hear and see over the next couple of days, and then determine what format we want to handle that next meeting with. So,
Thank you, Cleve. Okay, with that, thank you everybody this evening, and we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting of the Placerville City Council. Thank you.
thank you. Good night.
Right.
Right.